Hello, this is Chaotic Harmony, and I will be reading An Eye for an Eye, A Tooth for a Tooth by BronyRanger. When one uses the expression, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life, one may assume that the speaker is talking about revenge. Revenge on someone who has wronged them. Sometimes, it's not about revenge, but an exchange. I never saw the truck coming. Funny. When oncoming death is knocking at your door, you would think that you get a premonition of a sort, a warning. But life and death don't work that way. A truck came and went, and sometime between those two events, I died. I wasn't there to witness it, but I could probably predict the driver's reaction. They would be pale, shaken with fear, all the while harboring the animosity that they just ended the life of a fellow human being. God forbid I'd see the children's reactions. I'd never be able to take Abby to Disney World. I would never be able to see James ride his bike for the first time. Those happy memories. Their shining, smiling faces beaming at me plagues me even as I dream this dreamless sleep. As much as I want to escape death, it's inevitable, for everything has to die eventually. I'm sure phone calls will be made, ambulances contacted, paramedics urged to rush to the scene. All in vain. If my body wasn't dead already, sooner or later the doctors would have picked up their supplies with sad looks on their faces. Despite all they could do for others, there was nothing they could do for me. Actually, heaven, or wherever I am now, it's not bad. I feel nothing, from the pains of my injuries to the emotional pain that I would never see my family again. On the contrary, I was feeling apathetic, which frightened me a little. The fact that I no longer cared for my own existence made me uneasy. Have you ever blinked fast and quickly shut your eyes? You all did as children, I'm sure. If you haven't, try it now. Aren't those colors intriguing? Doesn't it make you wonder about what death is really like? My surroundings matched those very designs you just saw. They had no colors, yet they flowed seamlessly through every color on the spectrum. My cage, my prison, bore those same designs. I kept opening my eyes, trying to escape from this enclosure, but my eyes were already open. I had to try it again, sweeping open my eyes like a steel trap. But the background refused to fade from sight, refused to leave me in my own world. Time flowed differently in the void. The void, that's what I'm calling it now. It's the very essence of nothingness. A complete vacuum. Time isn't right here. Nothing's right here. For all I know, what feels like an hour in here could be a year in the world I came from. After what feels like forever in the void, I feel like something is watching me. What else could possibly be here? The watching presence never fades nor approaches me. Whatever it is, I'm still alone. I have been in the void long enough for me to get some serious thinking done. I think about my former life on Earth. I think about how much time has passed between now and that one day. I think about Abby and James. The children. How do you tell a family that their father is dead? The presence I feel has remained here, never leaving. Now I feel it drawing closer. There's no evidence that there was something there, but I could feel it. It seemed to be at the back of my mind, neither benevolent nor benevolent, but just there. Mortal. If I could jump out of my own skin, I would have. Being trapped in the void paralyzed me. To every word it says, hoping to discover a reason as to why I'm here. The time has come. The voice, deep and resounding, echoes through my head. It must be the presence I had felt so many times before. The time has come for what? I rasped, having not used my voice for what feels like an eternity. Also, what are you? The presence laughs. A deep echo that sounds and feels like nails screeching across a chalkboard. I go by many names, but you may call me Death. That is customary in your planar dimension, no? I furrow my brow, trying to get over the thought that I'm speaking with death itself. Well then, what the hell do you want from me? It probably wasn't wise to say things like that to Death, but I'd have been cooped up for too long. Death laughed again, making me want to claw my ears and scream. Hell, what a beautiful misconception, hell. A place of fire and sorrow, for the evil to drown in their own tears and gnash their teeth. Death paused. If only they knew the truth. A black, icy chill, like liquid night, began to creep down my spine. I ignored it and pressed on. What truth? What do you mean? Mortals, so inquisitive, Death mused. Well, the truth is, little mortal, is that your species has been wrong ever since the dawn of creation. You have acquired the belief that there is an all-powerful being out there who truly loves you. Death continued on, its tone of voice suggesting that I was continually getting bored with explaining everything to me. You all seem to believe that your religions were correct, that your religions were the best. I've received many souls over those arguments. I was beginning to worry now, waiting for Death to get to its point. You are special. Oh yeah? How? In a little mishap. Another being was born with the same soul that you have. Death's tone only admitted his amusement in this situation. It is not possible to split a soul, Death continued. So the only solution is for you to take your soul back. I was confused. Strangely, Death noticed this. Now its voice was slightly exasperated. Typical mortals never really know the important things. You see, every sentient being has its own soul. It's not possible for two beings to share a soul. Since it's not possible for you two to share a soul, one of you must die. I was confused. Wait, I'm already dead. So that means I won't have to kill anyone, right? I groaned. If that was true, I wouldn't be here right now. Death was getting impatient. Mortals, since you had possession of the shared soul first, you have the opportunity to take the soul back. A gun appeared in my hands. I stared down at it, a feeling of dread beginning to form within me. I never held a gun before. Never killed anyone. Death. That damn Death seemed to notice my apprehension, like he hadn't before. Would you like to see the being that has your soul, mortal? I was actually scared now. I wish I could just die and go to heaven, without the burden that I'd killed an innocent living thing. Suddenly, the scenery in the void changed, and I was in a hospital. Death was now accompanying me in physical form, a large, powerful specter who was adorned with a black robe that covered its entire being. I was disoriented and blinded from the trip out of the void, and when my vision stopped swimming, I saw that the gun was in my hand. I also realized that we were in a nursery, amongst the children of other people. The metal weapon of death in my hand was pointed at one of those children. The first thing that I thought of was the fact that the infant was a pony. Yes, a pony, complete with a hot pink mane, tail, and wings. It was immensely adorable, and the very thought of killing it repulsed me. I turned to Death, who had been watching me with an air of expectancy. This is a pony, I blurted out, wanting to figure out some way to avoid killing the innocent creature. It doesn't exist. So? Came the immediate response from Death. It may not exist on your world or plane of existence, but it certainly is real. Either kill it or don't kill it. Either way, one of you has to die. Oh yes, I do believe the pony's name is Fluttershy. I looked down at the gun in my hand, which was slightly trembling. I glanced over at Fluttershy. She was sleeping peacefully, a small lock of hair rising and falling with each breath. There was no way I could do this. Me? A killer? Never in my life. Or in death. I gritted my teeth. This had to be done. I had to get back to my children, my family. But I didn't want to have to kill anyone. I looked back at Death, who seemed to be waiting for me to pull the trigger. It looked back at me and shrugged. A life for a life, mortal. A life for a life. Looking back at the sleeping pony, I closed my eyes. A single tear ran down my face, and I raised the gun. My finger tightened on the trigger. Gasping, I immediately jolted upright. I recognized the place. This is where I had died. It looked the exact same it did before this entire ordeal had happened. Oh God. The memories came flooding back to me. I covered my face with my hands. I did it. I had killed somebody. I had maliciously taken a life. I groaned, feeling an immediate and powerful regret for what I had done. As soon as I groaned, the paramedics turned around, the expressions on their faces quickly morphing from saddened to happy. Hey, he's alive! The paramedics rushed over to me, helping me to get up and walk towards the ambulance, which was waiting to take my body to the morgue.
Daddy!
The children's overjoyed expressions on their faces when they saw their father literally return from the dead only worsened my grief. If only they knew exactly what I had done to return to this world. They rushed over to me, tears of joy quickly replacing their tears of mourning. I didn't have the same feeling as my children, but I managed to put on a brave face as they embraced me. It took a while to convince the doctors at the hospital that I was perfectly alright, but I was finally back in my own house. Having entered my own bedroom, something I thought I would never see again, I caught sight of something that tore my heart in two. It was the gun. The same gun that had taken a life for me to resume my own. It lay on my pillow, a reminder of what I had done to return to this place. Choking up, I opened the door to my closet and I flung the weapon inside. That did it. For the first time in years, I laid my head on my hands and I wept. I don't know for how long. As the tears streamed down my face, I recalled Death's words. One of you has to die. I knew what I had to do now. I had taken a life from poor Fluttershy, but Death had left me with another option. I could give life back. I wasn't worthy to live a life knowing that I had taken it from another. I opened the closet and retrieved the gun. For a moment, I just held it in my hands, suddenly in awe of the murderer's weapon, the ability to end a creature's life. An eye for an eye. I held the gun up to my temple. There would be no contemplation for what I was about to do. A tooth for a tooth. A single tear slid down my face, although I was smiling. I prepared to see my good friend Death once again. A life for a life. I hope Fluttershy knew what I did for her. Sometimes it's not about revenge, but an exchange.
Please note that this week's romance fiction was edited after we were recorded. Therefore, it may not be at the highest quality possible. Thank you.
Torrents of a Slow-Falling Rain by Stereo Sub. There's something about rain that makes a creature want to find a quiet spot, get cozy, and stay comfortable, warm, and safe until the sun shows its face again. The inhabitants of Ponyville were no exception. The small town had abandoned nearly all productive activities as soon as the scheduled downpour started, preferring instead to find somewhere snug and toasty to wait out the inclement weather. Twilight Sparkle was curled up in her library, rereading A Complete History of Equestria and Surrounding Nations, 4th revised edition, for the umpteenth time. Pinkie Pie, never one to let something as trivial as the weather spoil her plans, was conducting an indoor picnic with the Cake Twins in the top floor of Sugar Cube Corner. Applejack was napping peacefully under a bale of hay, exhausted from bucking a field's worth of fruit before the rain had started. And Rarity, ever the innovator, was meditating in her middle of her inspiration room, convinced that the white noise from the storm outside would help spark an idea for her latest line. All over town, ponies had fallen into a state of warm, drowsy indifference, content to simply stay inside and wait until the weather was pleasant again. Even Ponyville's smattering of Pegasi had elected to keep indoors, confident that the storm would run its course with minimum intervention on their part. There was no pony outside, just the steady pitter-pat of rain on the cobblestone streets and the occasional rumble of thunder. No pony, that is, except for a certain butter-yellow Pegasus nestled deep behind the branches of an old willow tree. Fluttershy leaned against the willow's gnarled trunk, a pad of paper resting on her legs, and a quill pen held delicately in her mouth. Every so often she would dip the implement into a tiny bottle of ink and write a line or two on the page before promptly scratching it out. She sighed in frustration.
This should be easy. You always write when it rains, Fluttershy, just because this time it's about her.
The Pegasus felt her cheeks grow red, despite the fact that there was no pony around.
Just because it's that doesn't mean you should be stuck on every single verse. Come on, just think up some rhymes to get you started. Tree, B, C, please. Oh, forget it.
She sighed again and stood up, taking care not to upset her ink bottle. The Pegasus closed her eyes and let the sound of the storm wash over all her other thoughts, feeling it up with her entire being. She loved times like these. There were no scary things, no appointments to make, no friends to remember to talk to, no animals to feed, just her writing, and the soft rustle of the wind and rain through the willow's branches. Fluttershy felt a small smile play across her lips, took a breath, and began to sing. It was an old earth pony ballad, with lyrics that had long since been lost inside the nooks and crannies of time. The melody remained, however, and the Pegasus performed it with abandon. Her voice was perfect for the tune, high, sweet, and clear. It carried across the town and over the treetops of the Everfree. Any other day she wouldn't have dared to let out so much as a note, but rains like this one were special. She could sing as loud as she wanted, and no pony would hear. It was perfect. Fluttershy finished the ballad, letting the last few notes get progressively softer before petering out into a soft hum. She sat back down against the tree, eyes still closed and slightly breathless.
Wow, I don't think I've ever sung that loudly before. I hope no pony.
Fluttershy, is that you?
There was a rustle of branches.
Rarity wanted me to see if you were okay.
With a terrified squeak, Fluttershy dove behind the trunk of the willow, shaking in fear and embarrassment.
Oh no, Why did she have to hear me? Of old pony.
She watched as the drooping branches were shoved aside to reveal a very wet, very cold-looking Rainbow Dash. The blue Pegasus frowned, looking around the sheltered clearing in confusion.
Hello? Fluttershy? Any pony home? Huh. I could have sworn.
Fluttershy was paralyzed. She quivered behind the tree, wishing, not for the first time, that she could just melt into the smooth trunk.
Nobody notices trees. They don't have to worry about hiding or liking some pony that probably doesn't even like them back or... Oh no!
She felt her blood turn to ice. There, not 2 feet from where Rainbow Dash was standing, was her pad of paper, still open to the page of her latest work. In her haste to avoid being spotted, Fluttershy had forgotten the small notebook entirely, along with her ink and quill. Now it lay in the damp grass, almost begging to be picked up and read. The yellow Pegasus squeezed her eyes shut.
Oh, eternal sisters of the sun and moon, if there is any kind of justice still present in this world, please do not let Rainbow Dash pick up that notebook. Sincerely, Fluttershy. Thank you.
Her plea, while heartfelt, was destined to go unanswered. No divine intervention of any kind appeared to stop Rainbow Dash from noticing the pad, picking it up, and flipping through it curiously.
What's this? Some kind of journal? First page. Let's see. Property of Fluttershy the Pegasus. If found, please return to... Oh, no way! Fluttershy's personal diary? Oh, man! I wonder what kind of juicy stuff she's got in here. Secret journals, love notes, sappy poetry. She's so quiet normally. There's gotta be something she keeps bottled up inside. I can't wait to.
She paused and looked around guiltily.
Well, a Maybe I shouldn't. It is hers after all. She probably is looking for it. I should probably go find her and give it back.
Yes, you should.
After I read a page or two.
The cyan Pegasus grinned at her own cheekiness. Fluttershy could only watch in silent horror as Dash flicked through the journal, finally stopping at the second most recent entry. The shy mare suppressed another squeak of alarm as she noticed the date on the page.
Oh no, please. Any of them but that.
Brow wrinkled in concentration, Rainbow began to read the entry aloud.
Dear Diary, there's another storm scheduled for today. Applejack says she wonders if they're trying to drain all the water out of Clodsdale before the running of the leaves. It's true, there has been a lot of weather lately, but I don't mind, not really. With every pony inside staying dry, I can sing as loud as I want, and write without any pony watching or sneaking up on me. It's nice. I've been working on another song for a couple of days now, something that I might be able to use to tell her how I feel. Of course, writing a song and actually performing it for someone are very different things, but hopefully this time I'll be able to get over myself enough to at least try.
Rainbow Dash paused in her reading, sounding bemused.
Wow, sweet little Fluttershy, a filly fooler? Who would have thought?
Behind the tree, Fluttershy's cheeks burned with a hot mixture of anger and humiliation.
Well, it's out now. No more normal life for me. I wonder how quickly I can convince Angel to move to the Griffin Highlands.
Dash's expression shifted, becoming something unreadable. She stared out into the distance, magenta eyes clouded in contemplation.
Yeah, who would have thought?
A tiny spark of hope flared up inside Fluttershy's heart, pushing back the overwhelming torrent of shame threatening to consume her by just a little.
What? No, it couldn't be. Could it?
It was more than the Pegasus dared to wish for. Rainbow Dash cleared her throat, and with another furtive glance around her, continued to read.
I'm so sick of this diary. I'm sick of having to hide all the time. I'm sick of having to make excuses every time Pinkie offers to take me out to meet a date, or Rarity volunteers to help find me Equestria's most perfect gentlecolt. I'm sick of waiting, and I'm sick of her not even knowing how much hurt she's causing. Oh, pony feathers! You know what, diary? I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish this song, and I'm going to go up to her, and I'm going to sing my bucking heart out. I don't care if she laughs at me, or if I get run out of town. Anything would be better than this.
There was a heavy silence, punctuated only by a crack of thunder overhead. Then Dash chuckled, shattering the air of gravity her reading had created.
Whoa! I think that's the first time I've ever heard Fluttershy swear. Guess even the element of kindness has her limits.
Behind the tree, the Pegasus in question face-hoofed.
All the things she could find important.
Dash frowned.
But where's the song? Maybe the next page?
She turned to the next entry, and her face lit up in mischievous delight.
Ah, here we go. Ode to the unknowing light of my life.
The Pegasus cackled.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
No. The journal entry was bad enough. Even if she reads that, my life is over. Well, it's already over, but now it's going to be even worse. Oh, why can't she just leave other ponies' property alone? What right does she have anyway? Why?
Ode to the unknowing light of my life by Fluttershy the Pegasus.
No!
Something sparked inside Fluttershy then, something deep and primal, fueled by months and months of pent-up frustration and loneliness. With an angry snort, she tossed her mane away from her eyes and stalked out from behind the tree, mouth twisted in a very un-Fluttershy-like expression.
First one! Gah!
Dash immediately shot several feet into the air and dropped the journal, looking like a filly caught with her hoof in the cookie jar.
You were looking for this?
She grinned meekly. There was a pregnant pause, then the silence was broken, quite uncharacteristically, by Fluttershy.
Rainbow Dash.
The Pegasus' voice was deadly calm, her normally gentle eyes looking hard enough to cut diamonds.
Oh, hey, Fluttershy! You know, I was actually about to go and find you when this nasty gust of wind just came out of nowhere and blew me right into this tree. Crazy, right? Anyway, here's your journal.
How dare you?
You okay, Shy? kinda freaking me out here.
Dash said, hovering nervously and avoiding the other mare's eyes. There was another pause. Then Fluttershy unleashed.
How dare you! How dare you snoop through other ponies' personal property without their permission? How dare you read their private thoughts out loud for the whole fucking world to hear? How dare you treat their hopes and dreams like nothing but an amusement for yourself? An amusement! A toy! Is that what my deepest desires are to you, Rainbow Dash? Just something to have a quick laugh at before you throw them away? Is that it? Do you think this is some kind of game?
But there was no pony else here. It was just me and you.
Dash's spluttered argument only served to make Fluttershy angrier.
So, that makes it okay?
Her voice changed to a cruel, mocking tone, anger dripping off every word.
Oh, let's snoop on Fluttershy. Let's look at all her secrets. Let's all laugh at her pathetic little fantasies. Oh, don't worry. She won't care. She's too shy, too sweet, too nice.
Fluttershy stopped to catch her breath, still seething.
Shy, please.
And another thing, not only do you read my private diary out loud, but then you have the nerve to try and lie about it to my face? Some element of loyalty you are.
Fluttershy realized that tears were streaming down her cheeks, leaving warm, salty trails of hurt and frustration across her muzzle. She pushed on through her sobs, practically screaming at the Cyan mare.
I thought I could trust you. I thought that you would have at least a tiny shred of respect left for the ponies you call your friends.
Fluttershy took a deep, shuddering breath.
Guess I was wrong. Now, if you could please just go away.
She collapsed onto the grass, sobbing quietly to herself. All the righteous fury she had felt just seconds earlier was gone, replaced by a huge, yawning pit of misery that threatened to swallow her whole. Silence. Rainbow Dash stood soaking wet and motionless, looking like she had been hit by a sledgehammer the size of the moon. Her wings hung listlessly at her sides, all thoughts of flight forgotten. Then, wordlessly, she turned and began to slowly walk away, tail drooping and eyes downcast. As she came to the edge of the sheltered cave of branches, she risked one last glance behind her.
Hey, Fluttershy?
The yellow Pegasus sniffled.
What do you want?
Dash sighed, staring at the ground.
Look, I know you probably hate me right now, and you totally have every reason to. And you probably want nothing more to do with me either. But before you shun me forever, I just want you to know that, I'm cool with it.
Fluttershy blinked in confusion. That had not been the response she was expecting.
Cool? With what? She couldn't.
Liking mares.
She did.
The pit of sadness collapsed in on itself, and that tiny warm spark of hope ignited again.
You are? You don't hate me?
Dash chuckled weakly.
Hate you? Why the hey would I hate you for something as dumb as that? Who you like isn't a choice. It's something you're born with, like wings or a horn. Don't be ashamed of it. Heck, be proud. It's something that makes you different, special.
The spark swelled, becoming a flickering flame. Dash shuffled her hooves awkwardly, eyes still fixed on the ground.
I mean, I would know.
The flame roared to life, becoming a full-fledged bonfire of wish and desire. Fluttershy looked up from behind her tears, barely daring to believe what she was hearing.
You mean, you like...
Rainbow sighed.
Yeah, I like mares. Yeah, I know. Shocker, right? Ponyville's best flyer, the Tom Colt with the freaking rainbow mane, a filly fooler. Who would have thought?
She sounded almost bitter.
But look, don't let that get in the way of what I'm saying, all right? I mean, sure, there's always going to be ponies who don't see it the way I do, but you know what? I say, if they can't accept you for who you are, buck 'em.
She slammed her four hooves together, accentuating her point.
You don't need them anyway. Trust me.
Dash looked around, scuffling the dirt with a hoof.
Well, I guess I'll be going then. I hope it works out with her, whoever she is. And, I'm really, really sorry. Honest.
She began to walk away, the boughs of the willow parting to let her back out into the clouds and rain. Fluttershy's heart felt like it was going to pop out of her chest.
This is it. This is the chance you dreamed of. The only opportunity you'll probably ever get. Come on, Fluttershy. Mirror up and say something.
Wiping her tears away, she stood up from the damp grass and called out uncertainly.
Wait, Rainbow Dash.
The question came out as a squeak. Rainbow turned.
Yeah?
She said, half of her body already soaked again from the downpour outside.
I'm really sorry, too. I shouldn't have gotten angry like that. It was mean and horrible, and you didn't deserve it at all. If anything, I should be the one apologizing, since I left my journal out for any pony to find. It was only natural for you to be curious.
It was a white lie, but one she was willing to tell if it meant repairing the most important relationship in her life.
Do you accept my apology?
Fluttershy looked into Dash's eyes, mentally begging her.
Please say yes. Please say yes.
Dash smiled. The fire inside Fluttershy burned a little brighter.
Course I do, you silly filly. The element of loyalty doesn't turn her back on her friends just because of a stupid fight.
There was an awkward pause. Then Rainbow spoke again.
Thanks for not hating me, too. I mean, for a minute there, I thought you were gonna bite my head off or something.
She stepped away from the edge of the tree, shaking water off her coat and shivering. Fluttershy gave a small smile of her own, disguising the fireworks show that was going on inside her stomach.
Thank you, sisters. May your reign be eternal and filled with peace and harmony. Oh, don't be silly, Rainbow. I would never think of hurting any of my friends. I was just angry, is all. And hurt, and terrified. The one mirror I want to be with forever would think my deepest desires were silly and pathetic. But that doesn't matter now.
Dash laughed.
I know, Fluttershy. Just messing with ya.
She grew serious for a moment.
But, honestly, I still feel kinda cruddy about what happened. Is there any way that I can make it up to you? A favor? I could help with the animals if you needed, or something.
Fluttershy's head was spinning.
Rainbow Dash. Me, Rainbow Dash, is offering me a favor?
She shook herself mentally, fighting back the storm of emotions.
Oh, get a grip, you silly mare. Ask her. Well, there is one thing. Am I really doing this?
Shoot! There's nothing the great Dash can't handle,
said Rainbow, now back to hovering in the air. She did a loop-the-loop around the tree as if to prove her point.
Well, you remember the song in my journal?
Yeah, ode to something or other, right?
Fluttershy giggled softly.
Yeah, that's the one. Well, it's actually a duet, and, I was just wondering if, just maybe, you would like to sing it with me? If you don't mind, of course.
She mumbled the last couple of words so quietly they were barely audible. Rainbow frowned, looking uncertain.
You mean, like, practice for when you perform it for her?
Fluttershy nodded. Yes, practice. That's it. I hope she doesn't realize it's not actually a duet.
Sure, I can do that, I guess.
Dash looked slightly uncomfortable.
I'm warning you, though, singing isn't really my thing. Don't be surprised if I screw everything up.
Fluttershy wanted to tell her right then and there. She wanted to say that even if Dash hit every note 3 octaves flat, it would still be the best performance she had ever heard. Instead, she just nodded and smiled again, trying to reassure her oblivious friend.
I'm sure you'll be fine. It's a very simple melody, really. Here, repeat after me.
She hummed a soft, trilling phrase that reminded Dash of a bird's call.
Now you try. You can go an octave lower if you like.
Rainbow complied. She stumbled over the tune a bit at first, but after several repetitions and her friend's encouraging words, she was hitting every note. Fluttershy beamed.
That was great! All right. Do you mind if we tried it with the words now?
Dash shook her head, looking uncertain but determined.
Let's do it! The element of loyalty never breaks a promise!
Fluttershy retrieved her journal from the damp grass and opened it to the page of her song. She shook her wings absently, trying to steady her nerves.
This is it, Fluttershy. The edge of the waterfall, the handle on the door. As soon as you open your mouth, there's no turning back. Oh, the hay with it. All right, I'll take the first verse by myself, and you can come in after that.
Got it!
Fluttershy took a deep breath, ignoring the butterfly flickers of apprehension in her stomach, and began to sing again. Her voice rang out from the base of the willow, overpowering even the din of the storm beyond. At this point, she didn't care who heard her.
When she walks through the cobblestone streets of my hometown, all the ponies she passes, they'll stop and they'll stare. And she knows that their gazes will linger unfaltered. Every colt, every filly, every stallion and mare.
Her fluty soprano was joined by Dash's scratchier alto, the two voices contrasting perfectly over the sound of the rain.
And she flows through the sky like wind on the water, spinning and turning through sunset and stars. And I long for the day when she'll know my desires, the day when her mind will transform into ours.
Fluttershy took another breath, closing her eyes and building her voice to a passionate crescendo. Beside her, Rainbow Dash did the same.
How I wish I could fly through the heavens to touch her. Her cerulean coat and bright prismatic mane. Then we'd soar through the clouds like spring was on a voyage, dancing through torrents of slow falling rain.
Dash's voice fell away at the end of the verse's final line, but Fluttershy continued unaccompanied, singing the melody wordlessly one last time. She drew out the notes, pouring every ounce of love and passion she had into the heart of the music. After the last strains of song had faded from the air, Fluttershy sat down next to Rainbow, who was leaning against the tree unmoving. The yellow Pegasus kept her eyes closed, lips parted, the barest hint of a smile. She looked content, peaceful, the image of serenity. For a while there was nothing to disrupt the silence but the echo of thunder, the gentle patter of raindrops, and the soft shh of the willow's branches in the wind.
Wow,
Murmured Fluttershy, almost reluctant to break the tranquility.
Yeah.
Dash replied. She sounded odd, almost choked. Fluttershy opened her eyes and snuck a glance in Rainbow's direction. The chromatic mare's eyes were still squeezed tightly shut, her mouth set in a quivering line.
oh no. Rainbow Dash, are you okay? Why did I have to do that? And now she probably does hate me, and it was stupid and selfish, and I should have never even...
I'm fine, really.
The Pegasus said shakily, eyes remaining closed.
Just tired.
Fluttershy noticed a couple of droplets leaking out from between Dash's clenched eyelids.
But that would mean... Rainbow, are you crying? Oh, I didn't make her angry. I upset her. Stupid, selfish, bad Fluttershy. Even when you try to love some pony, you just hurt them even more.
Dash opened her eyes. They were wet with tears.
Of course not. Just some rain in my eyes. Like I said before, I'm fine.
She mumbled before turning away and promptly bursting into quiet, hitching sobs.
Oh, Dashy.
Throwing caution to the winds, Fluttershy spread her wings and enveloped her friend in a tight, comforting hug. She felt her pinions brush against the edge of that incredible rainbow mane, the sensation sending tingles of electricity through her entire body. She saw those beautiful magenta eyes widen, first in surprise, then gratitude. She pulled Dash closer, expecting resistance from the normally touchy Pegasus. There was none. Fluttershy gave Rainbow a tender nuzzle, feeling the last vestiges of fear and apprehension dissolve into the cool softness of her friend's cyan coat.
This is nice. No, it's more than nice. This is incredible.
The two mares held the embrace for several minutes, neither wanting the moment to end. Finally, just when it seemed the hug would last forever, Rainbow Dash broke away. Her eyes were still shining, and her mane and coat were still streaked with tear tracks, but she was smiling.
Thanks, Shy. I needed that.
said Dash, sounding slightly embarrassed at the show of weakness. She sniffled, trying to clear away any evidence of the temporary chink in her emotional armor. Fluttershy saw the gesture, and began yet another torrent of apologies, mentally berating herself for taking pleasure in her best friend's pain.
What kind of poem? Oh, Rainbow, I'm so sorry. I never would have made you do anything like this if I knew it was going to... Oh, stupid.
Dash held up a hoof, eyes steely.
No, you stop that right now, Philly. Listen to me. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. Got that?
Fluttershy nodded, slightly taken aback by Rainbow's abrupt change in tone.
Sorry. Yes.
Dash sighed.
It's my fault. I shouldn't have gotten all stupid and sappy like that. It's just... the song.
Fluttershy's heart plummeted.
You didn't like it?
Didn't like it? Didn't like it? Are you kidding?
Rainbow locked her gaze with Fluttershy's, looking more intense and passionate than the yellow mare could ever remember seeing her.
Fluttershy, that song was the most incredible thing I've heard in my life. It was beautiful and smart and poetic and...
Fluttershy's heart soared upward again, feeling like her emotions were being pulled along by a roller coaster. Rainbow Dash stomped a hoof on the ground, looking irritated.
Oh, Celestia, dang it! Why can't this be easy? Look, I guess what I'm trying to say is that whoever that mare is, she's, well, really lucky, and I hope she realizes that. I mean, you'd make an awesome Philly friend.
She winced at her choice of words.
Not that I would. I mean...
That does it. I can't stand to see her hurting herself like this.
Fluttershy steeled herself.
Rainbow.
Dash paused, blushing the same color as the red in her mane.
Yeah?
Do you know what prismatic means?
Rainbow's brow wrinkled in bewilderment.
What does that have to do with anything?
Fluttershy sighed, barely suppressing a smile.
Just answer the question. Even when she's confused, she's adorable.
Dash shook her head, still looking baffled.
No idea.
It means like a rainbow.
Whispered Fluttershy, now sporting a blush of her own.
A beautiful, strong, vivid rainbow. Something that lights up the sky wherever it goes. Oh, please don't make me explain it. I don't know if I can...
Dash's eyes widened as comprehension dawned.
Wait, the song? Rainbow-like, prismatic mane. It was about me?
Fluttershy was silent. She had prepared herself for this moment for countless hours, rehearsing it over and over in her head. But here, now, with the mare she had spent what felt like a lifetime longing over just inches away, her mind was drawing a blank.
Yes.
She squeaked, feeling smaller and more insignificant by the second. Rainbow Dash stood, dazed and motionless, processing this turn of events. Finally, she spoke.
Fluttershy, that's...
Dash was stammering, searching for the words to express the vortex of emotions she was experiencing.
You...
Of
Fluttershy panicked.
course she doesn't know what to think. I just confessed my love for her. She's probably looking for the best way to let me down nicely. Stupid Fluttershy!
The flood of apologies began to well up again, her natural instinct for politeness and passivity overriding all else.
Rainbow, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have just left you alone. I shouldn't have tried to...
She cried out in surprise as Dash grabbed her by the torso and soared upwards, breaching the sheltered canopy of the willow with a single beat of her wings. Outside, the rain was still going strong, and Fluttershy felt herself beginning to shiver as the cyan Pegasus climbed higher and higher.
What is she doing?
Finally, just when Fluttershy could have sworn ice crystals were beginning to form between her feathers, Dash halted her ascent. They were hovering above the vast, sweeping expanse of the ever-free forest, trees and rivers laid out in a nebulous patchwork of jades and midnight blues. Fluttershy glanced downward, immediately regretting doing so. The height was dizzying, and she felt herself beginning to panic.
Rainbow Dash, if it's not too much trouble, could we maybe, please, just go down, just a little?
Rainbow grinned.
You know something, Shy?
What?
You're really cute when you're worried.
She inclined her head downwards, bringing the yellow mare's face closer to her own. Her eyes sparkled.
I mean, you're pretty cute the rest of the time, too.
And with that, she leaned in and met Fluttershy's lips in a quick, tender kiss. Time stopped. Fluttershy felt every detail of the outside world melt away, her senses feeling simultaneously electrified and awash with the warmest, most pleasurable sensation she had ever experienced in her life. Her desires, her longing, her deepest wish, it had all finally become reality.
I have a silly friend. I have a special summer home. I have Rainbow Dash, and she has me.
She repeated the thoughts over and over, as though losing track of them would somehow make her dream slip away.
No, silly. That won't happen. This is more than a wish, more than a dream. This is real.
She looked up, meeting Rainbow's gaze. They were the eyes of more than a friend, more than a companion. They were the eyes of a lover. A million unspoken thoughts passed between them in that fleeting instant, saying more than words could ever hope to. With a shy smile, Fluttershy snuggled closer, taking solace in Rainbow's protective embrace.
Thanks, Dashy. You don't mind if I call you that, do you? I know that you don't like it when Pinkie Pie does it.
Rainbow shook her head dismissively.
Nah, it's cool. Sure, when Pinkie does it, it can be kind of annoying. But I think I can make an exception for my Philly friend.
She smiled, and Fluttershy felt her heart skip.
I'm Rainbow Dash's silly friend. This is really happening.
Dash interrupted her self-assurance with another kiss, this time to the cheek. Fluttershy had to stop herself from shivering in delight as she felt the touch of the other mare's lips upon her face. Rainbow smirked, noticing the reaction.
Don't worry, there's plenty more where that came from.
She spun in the air, causing Fluttershy to yelp in surprise, and gestured out at the slate-colored sky above.
So, what do you say we wrap this storm up? I don't know about you, but I think the whole clouds and drizzle thing is getting pretty old.
Fluttershy nodded happily. Usually she wouldn't have even considered flying when the sky was anything but a clear, cloudless blue. But today, for so many reasons, was different. She felt alive, energized, like she could fly across Equestria and back without even breaking a sweat. She pecked Rainbow Dash on the nose, causing the other Pegasus to blush, and launched herself away into the sky beyond, dipping and turning without a care in the world. Dash laughed at the normally timid mare's unexpected burst of energy.
All right, the Major Kumos are back over there, a little past Sweet Apple Acres, said
Rainbow, pointing with a hoof.
We're gonna have to clear those first if we want to make any headway.
She grinned at her filly friend.
Last one there's a leaky cloud.
With a whoop, Dash rocketed away towards the sky above the farm, Fluttershy laughing and following behind her. They flew freely, spinning and looping, reveling in the sheer joy that can only be found in the simple gifts of life and love.
And they flow through the sky like wind on the water, spinning and turning through sunset and stars. And they remember the day when they knew, the day when their mind transformed into ours. Though the morning began with their teardrops and sorrow, they saw their affections were one and the same, and they soared through the clouds like spring winds on a voyage, dancing through torrents of slow falling rain.
And it's that time that everyone hates, the time we end the show. For those of you who wish to submit fictions to us, the email to send them to is readrainboom@gmail.com. That is readrainboom@gmail.com. If you didn't quite catch that, don't worry, it's on the screen. Make sure to include fanfic on the subject line, and also put a link to the fiction in the email. Keep in mind, not every fanfic will be read, so don't rage at us if they aren't. Any comments or suggestions other than fanfics can be sent to us at that email as well. Also, as stated before, we have a set of rules for fictions, which are 1. The fictions must be PG-13, no exceptions. 2. The fictions must be completed. 3. Authors can submit their own story, but cannot be selected without fan support. 4. Fics should not be too short or too long. 5. Not too many key characters. We have a limited crew. I hope you all enjoyed watching this show as much as we did making it. And now, it is time to leave. Read on, every pony. Read on.